correspondent. Tweet at Student Voice if you have any questions or comments to make during the Twitter chat. Also on the call we have Ross Bogus, we have Mahika Gupta, we have Rachel Berlin, and Sahil Nair. They have all their Twitter accounts too, so feel free to tweet at them, but they'll be a little bit engaged in this at the time. So that's where we stand. Basically, we're doing corresponding Twitter chats, so for those of you who are out there tuning in, you can feel free to tweet in the Twitter conversation just by tweeting hashtag StuVoice, and then everyone will be able to comment on there. We have Clement Coulson moderating that chat as well. So it's a pleasure for you guys to join us. And with that being said, I'd love to go around and do very brief introductions for everyone. How about Mahika? You go first.
Hey guys, my name is Mahika Gupta. I am a junior at Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Fantastic. Rachel?
I'm Rachel Bellin. I'm the Student Voice Team and Development Director at the Pritchard Committee.
Okay, very cool. Ross?
My name is Ross Bogus, and I'm part of Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team.
Great. Sahil? Sahil? All right, a little bit of technical difficulty here. Daniel?
Yes, I'm Daniel. I am a second-year student at the University of California, San Diego, and I will be your career correspondent for today.
All right, very cool. Okay, so just to start, Rachel, if you could give us a little bit of background on the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team, what you guys do, where you guys are coming from, and a bit of the pathway to get there.
Okay, so I'll start here. The Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence is the nonprofit that started this initiative, and what it is, the Pritchard Committee is it's a statewide citizens advocacy group for public schools. For 30 years, this independent nonprofit has been mobilizing business and civic leaders across the state to push for improved Kentucky public schools. And in those 30 years, the Pritchard Committee has met with great success, moving Kentucky from the bottom of the barrel in student academic achievement to the middle of the pack and higher now on many academic assessments. But in all that time of doing such incredible, amazing work on so many levels, the committee has never truly and deeply involved students in that endeavor. So as the 30th anniversary approached, we thought it was high time, and our executive director, Stu Silberman, thought it was high time to see what would happen if we engaged students on a deeper level and had students involved not just as consumers of our schools, but as partners in helping to improve them. So as part of a strategic planning process, we convened or really appealed to a broad group of students in Central Kentucky to work with us to essentially make the case to the Pritchard Committee members, and that's 125 or so people across the state who are members of this group, this esteemed group, and we wanted to make the case about whether and how students might be involved in the education policy work of the organization. And this strategic planning process really created an opening because people had never before truly considered students as partners in policy making, and we assembled a group, and some of them are here with me today, to do exactly that, to make the case. So I'll leave it to Ross to pick up from there.
Yeah, so we're a medium-sized group. We're about 15 of Central Kentucky students, and we have people from different counties. We're both public and private schools, and we are from 8th grade right now to senior in high school. So we are all over the board, and we're ethnically diverse. But the problem is, we kind of, not necessarily a problem, but it's a good problem to have in this case, is that we skew high achieving. So we don't represent the student voice. We represent a portion of the student voice trying to represent every student. We are self-selected and we go by a challenge by choice basis, and we have no adult gatekeeper. So it's a great group with.
Going after Ross.
Yeah, Mexico's.
Go ahead, Mika.
Okay. Like Ross said, right from the beginning, we have been a group of self-motivated kids, students co-creating this as we go. We never had a plan. All the students that are on this aren't doing it for the title or the recognition or to put it on our college application. We're doing it for our pure love of education and the realization that students must be partners in creating our education. The biggest thing that is unique about our student voice team is that we are an authentic youth and adult partnership. So that means we're not like a teacher or student partnership or child and parent. We are different. We do it all ourselves and with a little bit of help, obviously. So for example, we have ideas, we think of it all ourselves, from our agendas to what we're going to do in meetings, and then we go back and we enhance that and work on that and see where did we make mistakes. We're not afraid of trying out new things and failing. That's how it all goes. A lot of youth organizations around the world, they're just basically created by adults, and then you just are followed by youth. Youth don't really have any say. They tell us that they're bridging the gap, but in reality, we can't bridge the gap if you're making the agenda and you're figuring out the schedules and you're doing it all. So we do all that, and we recently realized that we need an executive board, so we added that to it, and it's going along the whole process. We're just creating it as we go, figuring out what we need and how we should adapt, we should change, what we like. What we are really great about what we're doing. Whenever in the meetings we talk about what's going on and what we're doing good and what we should improve on. So we're really open in that, and it's a really nice something that's completely different that most students aren't even used to doing. So it's pretty great what we do here.
Sure. And for those of you guys tuning in, the reason why we invited the Pritchard Committee Student Voice team to this hangout and to host this Twitter chat with us is because the work that they're doing is groundbreaking in the sense that it's collaboration between adults and students in the education policy decision-making process. Not to mention they're pioneers in their field of statewide united student voices to create change and to be heard at the discussion. So with that, I think we can go ahead and jump into some of our questions here. You guys have talked about instances of what you guys call token representation. Could you guys expand on that and what you mean and provide some examples? I know after speaking with some of you guys, that includes the site-based decision-making councils and basically how the adults and students can work together in that process as well.
Rachel, can you unmute your mic?
Okay.
Yeah, so to touch on that, the great thing Mahika said is that we self-plan our meetings, but we also self-motivate what we do outside of the meetings. And the meetings is not where the bulk of the action happens. It's outside, whether it be a speech or collecting voices or whatever it is. But SBDM is something that Kentucky requires by law, where each school has to have one, and there's certain requirements for that, and also certain limitations. So on top of SBDM, where a student may not have a voting right, where it actually does not have a voting right at this point, parents, teachers, and administrators have a voting right now. It's more of an honorary position if a student does decide that they're going to pursue action on the SBDM. And it's very limiting to what they can say, and even though the voices that they may have can be influential, it is very tokenized where somebody can say, oh, we have a student representation, yet it's not doing much. So that's what we're trying to solve. We don't want something to happen where we're just put in a picture frame and said, hey, this is our student, we're going to use them when needed. We want to be a partner at that table. So it's not as needed, it is an ongoing basis.
And what Ross, just to elaborate on what Ross is saying, a lot of times, and I see this from an adult perspective, students are put onto organizations as junior members or token members, really just rubber stamp an adult agenda. But we were trying to envision and imagine at the Pritchard Committee what would happen if we involve students in the very earliest design phase of this collaboration and this partnership between youth and adults. What if it was a joint youth and adult agenda? And by the way, another significant factor that I think sets what we're doing apart from a lot of other youth-serving initiatives is that we don't say that students have sort of the sacred, innocent voice that must be protected. We're not student-centered. We are student and adult-driven. So it's a real collaboration where we think students need to partner with adult allies to accomplish great things in the policy arena. And that's what we've been trying to do. And we've been experimenting a lot. We did not claim, from the very beginning, we had a basic idea of what we wanted to do, but we did not flesh it out. We left that process very open and organic, and we've been developing it as we go. We've been literally laying the train tracks down as we go over them. And it's been working for us because it's allowed for us to prototype a lot of different ideas and fail quickly and early and learn from our mistakes and put a lot of great plans into action.
Sure, and that's a beautiful thing about what you guys are doing is it's really organic in a sense because you are, it's almost like the startup mentality, I would say, where it's learning from experience as you go and being holistic and reflecting through that process. And one of the things that I think a takeaway message here is for those of you out there on the Twitter chat, how can you go about integrating so that it is students and adults on the same platform, on the same level. It's not like you're elevating one and lowering the other. It's on the same level for a true communication, true collaboration to get real partnerships and success done out of that. So that being said, I'm going to hop to our second question here. The Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team has gained a significant amount of recognition around the state fairly quickly. To what do you attribute such growth, and what kind of growth has that been, and what does that look like?
Sahil, do you want to take that?
Definitely. I think what makes our growth, what we attribute our significant amount of growth is the organic nature of our organization. This organic nature gives us, obviously, a very flexible mentality. We're always willing to change, like Rachel and Ross and Mahika have discussed. We're an organization that learns by doing and takes the successes and failures we have and adapts them to our ongoing and future agendas. And, recently what we've been seeing is this snowball effect of sorts, where more and more organizations are seeing what we've been doing. More and more individuals are seeing our worth in the discussion, and more people are recognizing that students in general have a place in the discussion. What we've seen in this month of January, in fact, is that our student voice team has been invited to a lot of different organizations and events where individuals have come to us first and asked for our input and asked for our participation. And this is mainly due to the fact that we're reaching out to collaborate with both adults and youth-oriented leadership groups going across both sides of the aisle, so to speak. We're supporting balanced partnerships between youth and adults. And this type of partnership is one that a lot of individuals appreciate, and that's what sets us apart from other organizations in the student voice movement. Our goal has always been to amplify the voices of students, and we've done this through representing students in for example, Andrew recently represented students in a joint interim meeting on education in Frankfurt recently, a hearing in Frankfurt recently. His success, for example, is only another example of how we've garnered respect from a lot of individuals, and this is what we attribute to our recent success, because now more than ever, more and more people are seeing our worth in the community and seeing our worth in this movement, and it's just a continued snowball effect, and we expect more and more growth in the future.
And just to add one thing to what Sahil was saying, and you said it so eloquently, Sahil. It's no small thing that we're building a 30-year track record of a very credible organization, which is the Pritchard Committee. If we had started our own 501c3 nonprofit separate and apart from this existing credible statewide organization with some national support and lots of connections across the state, it would have taken us probably 30 years to get to the point where we are. But we're riding on the coattails of a great organization, and we're collaborating every step of the way, and we're trying very hard not to be confrontational, but to work with existing organizations to the greatest extent we can, and that includes other youth-serving organizations. And we are very open to building on these existing resources. So we're not starting from scratch. We have an extremely limited budget. I wouldn't even say it's a shoestring budget. It's more like a dental floss budget, but we're able to accomplish a lot with very little because we're working with so many other people who are doing great work around the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it's all about, is basically connecting the resources from existing platforms and connecting them to the passion of these students, many of which you guys are on the line right now. It's beautiful to see that happen, and I think that reflects a lot of the values of the student voice movement. Mahika, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was just saying, like Rachel was mentioning, the fact that we started and with a coexisting organization that is very well founded and very successful and noticed, and it has it all, is so genius. Like when you first think about it, like everyone just like when they see a problem, they just instantly want to start an organization, and they think just founding something and having that title of being able to say that you invented this or you started this is, they think, most people think that, I think that too, that that's where the best thing is, just having that title. But in reality, the amount of opportunities and the level at which we have risen and success we've had due to this, it is way more better than starting off. And like Rachel said, if we wouldn't have started off with a already existing group, we probably would not even be on this Twitter chat right now.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's all great conversation here, because at the end of the day, what you guys are doing and what you guys are as an exemplary model of student voice on the practical hands-on level is uniting these ideas to the people in the sphere of influence already. So that's kind of what I think we're all getting at here. Sahil?
I'd just like to stress once more the importance of existing partnerships in our growth, and Rachel touched on this a bit in regard to the fact that we've stemmed from a Pritchard Committee initiative, and our role on the our roots of the Pritchard Committee have been instrumental in propelling us into this stage and into this position and into this growth. But furthermore, a lot of us on the Student Voice team are members of other youth leadership initiatives, and a lot of us have been parts of grooming existing partnerships. And the value of these existing partnerships cannot be understated, because this is what allows us to reach out to more and more individuals and broaden our scope. And we've looked at organizations in Fayette County and in Kentucky abroad. And these different organizations, for example, Apple Shop, NYC here in Lexington, these different organizations allow us to garner the voices and bring out the voices of more and more students that wouldn't be possible were we just limited to 15 individuals in a room. And the value of these existing partnerships cannot be stressed enough. And I think that most of our recent growth can be attributed mainly to the fact that now we're able to exploit these existing partnerships in the most productive of ways. And you know, in our line of work in this organization, the fact that many of us as members and you know, our facilitators like Rachel have great connections already, and the fact that we're going out and creating more connections and more partnerships is only lending to our growth more and more. And existing partnerships are the reason that we have catapulted ourselves into recent success and recent recognition.
Absolutely. Follow-up question for you guys. How would you encourage people watching to go out and identify different partnerships that they could work with? You know, you guys mentioned Apple Shop, which I'm familiar with briefly about mobilizing students in Kentucky. So how would you what was the process like for actually going about identifying and connecting with those existing platforms and existing resources?
Go ahead.
So, as I said earlier, we're very high achieving, or we skew high achieving, and with that, all of us have our different little niche in Kentucky, and a lot of us are in statewide organizations, and having friends and family other places in Kentucky and even across the U.S., and we're able to hear what they're talking about, like what their organizations they're into, and it's the beauty of what we're doing is that it fits into a lot of context. So the Lexington Mayor's Youth Council is a very great organization I've been a part of for the past 3 years significantly, and they have served as a great voice. The problem is they skew high achieving as well. But we're looking to encourage voices from everybody, and once you get that ball rolling, somebody comes up to us and says, hey, we have an opportunity with this. Does this work for you guys, and so on. And we also are seeking out intentionally going to middle schools with one of our focus groups and asking and doing some interviews with them. And I guess it's just the constant talking to people, seeing what they're doing, and seeing how we can get plugged into them and how we can adapt to their culture. And amplifying their voices.
And just to build on what Ross is saying, it is a central component of the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team mission to amplify the voices of all kinds of students from across the state of Kentucky on education policy issues. The hope is that we are going to bring added value and insight to other policymakers, namely adult policymakers, on the real-world classroom impact of the policies that they're making. So to be very specific, we are bringing student voices to the attention of policymakers and other adults on issues such as measuring teacher effectiveness and adequate funding, issues I know your group, Student Voice, has been very interested in, also the achievement gap, for example. And
absolutely.
We're still in a pilot phase. I mean, this is important to understand. As I say, we're not fully funded yet. We're figuring this out as we go. But last year was kind of a think tank stage where we made our case. We got people excited about our group. This year we developed our own mini strategic plan for a pilot year, and we are testing out lots of ideas, and among them we are fanning out across the state, conducting roundtables, getting interviews, capturing and documenting student voices like those in Whitesburg, Kentucky from Appleshop, Mayor's Youth Council, other areas across the state, and we are wanting to share those voices in presentations, live presentations with intergenerational audiences, or on our own media and on Vimeo. We are writing a whole slew of op-ed and commentary pieces with the idea that we're not going to wait for somebody else to tell our story and frame our narrative. Young people need to do it themselves if you want a new narrative. You can't wait for other people to do it. You have to create your own media. This is also exactly what you guys are doing and what we admire so much about Student Voice.
Appreciate that. And to tag on, we actually have a great question from our Twitter audience. Timothy Baker asked, what issue regarding Kentucky education is at the top of the list for transformation in the upcoming year for you guys? Now, I know that you just mentioned a little bit of that, but could you expand a little bit on those particular ordering, or if there's a certain topic that rises to the top of the agenda? What would you say about that?
Well, so the way we've set it up, or not necessarily set it up, but the way we have kind of steer our way is to have these focus groups. So one is working on one little group. We're about 2 or 3, up to 5 people in each group. One is about the achievement gap. One is about the student representation on the SVDM. One is about Sawhill and Mahika. You guys can fill it out. I'm trying to think of the ones. Oh, homework and the significance with that, and how it may not necessarily be misused, but it's just, I guess, identifying that and seeing how things like that, and those will change every once in a while.
And other issues like adequate funding keep coming up. Kentucky's playing a lead role nationally in the Common Core, implementing the Common Core. There are a lot of eyes across the country on Kentucky to gauge our success. And we're looking at now whether students should be seen as messengers and be part of that message, There are a lot of roles we're exploring and a lot of very specific subject areas we're exploring, and we understand that for students to really be heard, it's not enough just to have an opinion. They must be very informed opinions, and they shouldn't represent just single individuals. To the greatest extent we can, we're trying to represent as many students as we can from a wide variety of backgrounds. And I'll get very specific again because it's hard to picture all of this. But we just, as Sahil was saying, we just had one of our members, Andrew Brennan, who's actually the first official Pritchard Committee student member of the Pritchard Committee. He testified at the joint education hearing in Frankfurt on the student perspectives on adequate funding. Later this month, a group of us are going to be presenting at a huge teacher conference in front of hundreds of teachers on the impact of effective teaching and student perspectives on the impact of effective teaching. And this is a group called the Fund for Transforming Education in Kentucky. We were invited by a whole bunch of other normally adult-serving organizations. They are focused on youth, but they actually address adults normally, and they involve adults usually only for the next several months. And the agenda keeps growing because people are hungry to hear from students on some of these issues. They don't realize it until they hear students for the first time talking about some of these issues, but I think we're hitting a nerve because there's a real hunger to hear about some authentic, the authentic impact of education policy. And who better? Students.
And going off of Rachel, once we present in different events, various things we go to, once they hear us talk or a speech or they see our presence, everyone just gets so excited, and just seeing their face and their glow, it gets us really excited. Like at the beginning, we were kind of confused, like the adequate funding, and before that when we'd attend meetings, we'd be like, why are they so surprised? Why are they so excited with us here? And then later on, we understand that this is so new for them, like having students there. Like they're talking about meetings and they're giving speeches with other adults, obviously, about students. And they're always going back to the phrase, it's all about students, and it's our kids that we need to take care of. And then to turn your head and to see a student sitting right next to you, it's a pretty big deal. So it's pretty exciting. Some of us, when we go to different events, various events, we go back to our general meetings every month, and we explain to them what happened, and we tell them how excited. There's a couple times after Andrew or one of us, we give a speech, the adults are so impressed that they don't want to speak after us. So they say that, they're like, we don't want to go after them. Why were we scheduled after that? We can't talk after that. They set the bar so high. So it's really exciting to hear that and to realize that, whoa, students in this new zone of like reality against their talking about their real like life decision makings about their education. It's pretty exciting and real and important.
Sure. And to tag on there, I'd encourage everyone listening out there on Twitter, basically, if you're passionate about something like this, like these the members of the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team are, just go out and do some research, see what organizations are in your state that do similar work. I know for me, I'm in Tennessee, and we've got a fantastic organization called Tennessee SCORE, State Collaborative on Reforming Education, which reminds me of Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence, and I think Rachel's nodding her head here. I think she might be familiar with their work, but you can really go out there and find people to work with. And so going from there, we got another question from the audience. Mark Harrell asks, how can STEM students in Kentucky have their voices heard?
Can you say that again?
Yes. How can STEM students in Kentucky have their voices heard? So I believe that the importance here is how to integrate science, technology, engineering, and mathematics into the student voice conversation.
Keaton, I'm actually a member of the Math Science Technology Center at Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, which is a magnet program for STEM students that aims to give STEM enrichment activities through research and advanced class opportunities for students in general. And one of the major reasons that I got involved with the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Initiative is the reason that as a STEM student, as someone who values a STEM education, I believe that our views and furthering the purpose of STEM education and furthering STEM education in general, specifically in schools, was something that was not addressed up until recently. And as a STEM student, I come with a unique perspective to student voice initiatives and student voice meetings. And there are definitely just as many opportunities for STEM students to express themselves and express their unique perspectives. And I believe that as a STEM student, one thing we mustn't constrain ourselves with is our uniqueness. We're at the end of the day still students, and when it comes to amplifying our voices and getting our thoughts and perspectives out there, we need to use existing channels, and we need to use the same sort of student voice channels that all the other students across the nation are using. One of the reasons that I love the Student Voice Initiative at the Pritchard Committee is the fact that we have such a great variety of students in the initiative. We have students from private schools and public schools. We have students in STEM education, and the individuals that we have involved are also involved in performing arts and also pretty much any activity or any subspecialty that you can imagine. We have a student on the Student Voice Initiative, or individuals that are very much vested in the Student Voice Initiative from that subspecialty or from that perspective. And as a STEM student, I can tell you that it is very important for us to get our unique perspective out there, but by no means should we feel limited with our own STEM perspective, because the existing channels are just as open to STEM education and the perspective of a STEM student as they are to any other student in general.
Absolutely, I love that. And how perfect is it that we have a representative from a engineering, mathematics-oriented background on this call. And so to move along here, I just wanted to repeat to our Twitter audience, at the end of our call, after this next question here, we'll be taking open floor questions from the Twitter community, so feel free to tweet at Student Voice to have your questions answered live. But that being said, I'm going to hop to our last question here, and I've got a couple other, basically, your group has indicated that you guys are composed of mainly seemingly high-achieving students from Central Kentucky. But as we know, Kentucky has some very different regions and very diverse student populations. How do you make up for that deficit in representation, and what are the things you're actively doing to bring about change on that front?
I think the best thing to do is to utilize the technology that we have in front of us. Like right now, we're using it, and we have 6 different people in front of us talking from different parts of the country. And as it sometimes feels like that when you go to Eastern and Western Kentucky, like a different part of the country. And like this earlier today, we had a meeting, and we had somebody from Western Kentucky Skype in and was able to fully engage in our meeting. But we've also actively seeked out, if that's right grammar, seeked out people from Eastern Kentucky with Apple Shop, which is one of you guys can explain a little bit more about that if you went. I didn't get the chance to go to that one, but we are both being there physically and virtually. So definitely using Facebook and the connections that we've gotten virtually, and to stay in touch through that is an awesome way. And we can quote them, whether it be a message they send us in a speech or however it is. So.
Yeah, and I'll give you another very specific example to illustrate what Ross is saying. When one of us spoke at a huge statewide summit on adequate funding, he spoke about the people we talked to in Whitesburg and the fact that this one particularly compelling story that a boy told about his community spending millions of dollars on a new football stadium, but he was not able to afford a uniform to play. And it's stories like that that bring some of the harder data down to the right level and put some heart and soul into the research and data and bring it to life. And that's what we're trying to do in representing some of these voices, to remind people what it's all about. There's a mantra, it's all about kids, and we try to be very focused, but oftentimes our school systems are really not about kids. They're all about adults, and sometimes they're protecting jobs only, and people forget. They forget their passion, and students help remind people about that. And I think that the more we can represent that wide array of student voices that exist across Kentucky, the better off everyone will be, and our schools will be much better for it.
It's beautiful, beautiful. Sahil, you're saying something?
As members of the Student Voice Initiative, one of the roles that we undertake is acting as ambassadors and amplifying the voices of those that aren't necessarily heard. By no means do the 15 individuals or so that comprise the Student Voice team represent Kentucky or Fayette County or Central Kentucky or any subset's true student voice. As we've talked about, we are SKU high achieving, SKU highly involved, whatever in whatever way you slice it, we're not in any way truly representative of the student voice. But one of the roles that we have as a team is to amplify the voices of students around us that aren't necessarily heard. I just saw a tweet from Andrew Brennan who discussed the fact that students in Letcher County, where we visited with Apple Shop, they were very eager to share their thoughts. And the fact of the matter is that they're not necessarily individuals that are heard very often. All of us, there are students out there, and more often than not, all of them are willing to give their opinion, and all of them want their opinion to be heard, but they're not used to being heard. They're not used to their opinion being wanted and sought after. And we as individuals and ambassadors of the Student Voice Initiative, it is our job to amplify these voices. I think a role that all of us have to take up very seriously is the role of the ambassador, because it is our job to make sure that those who are not necessarily sought after, those whose opinions are not necessarily sought after, our job to make sure that their opinions are heard. That's a job, or that's a role as a member of the Student Voice team that I relish and that I love to be a part of, because in my eyes, I'm helping represent the student voice. By no means am I the student voice. By no means do I represent 100% of the student voice of Fayette County, Central Kentucky, Lexington, or anything like that. But one of my jobs and one of our roles as members of the Student Voice team is to amplify the voices of those around us, and that's a role that anyone who really is passionate about student voice can take. There really is a crowd that wants to hear your voice, and it's up to you to go out and find it. And what we're trying to do as a subset of our goals of the Student Voice team is to go out and amplify the voices of those that aren't necessarily heard.
Love that. I love that. Well put. I think that you really tapped to the core there. Mahika, you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying our whole mission is to amplify voices. But before we do that, we first have to, there's this barrier built around students, including our own selves, that we have to break. It's a barrier that isn't used to getting asked these questions. So we have to break that barrier. There's so what is an achievement gap? What do you think about your homework? What do you think about your teachers? And these questions, some of them, like teachers and homeworks, we're used to just kind of being like, oh, I don't like it, I don't like this, I wish it was like this. But we haven't really given that opportunity to think and be like, okay, if someone who has the opportunity to make a difference and go speak and amplify our voices asks me about my homework, my teacher, my education, what would I say? So that is something that we really are breaking down. And when I'm doing roundtable discussions, which is one of my favorite parts, talking to kids one-on-one, and we have like a group of 5 or 6 kids, we record them and then we transcript them and we use this like hard flesh, wonderful quotes from students all over, I tell them, I make sure before we're talking to kind of get them used to me, I'm like there's a camera right in front of their face, but I try not to intimidate them, is I say, it's okay if you say you don't know. That's okay. There's no right answer, and that is something every student needs to hear. There is no
Okay, it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but that was really appreciate that insight, Mahika. And that being said, we have our next question from the Twitter audience. What is Apple Shop? Ross or Sahil, one of you guys want to jump in there?
It appears that their whole internet has gone down.
Oh dear. So, momentarily. Mahika, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Sorry, we lost you there for a sec. So you were saying?
What was I saying? Oh,
We're all joining Mahika because our internet's down. So,
Welcome back.
okay.
We're all with you.
Okay. Let me move this back.
You unplug it.
Can I? Oh, yeah.
Where is it coming out? Do you hear it, Rachel?
I don't hear it.
Because
Okay. We need to move this back.
okay, so can you guys hear us?
Yes.
I
Loud
can
and
hear
clear.
it. Yours works, Ross.
Ross is yours.
Yours is Ross. Yeah.
For those
Yeah, I
of you
told
guys
you
tuning in,
we're improvisers. We make it up
they're
as we go.
improvising. They're so well connected, and they're so close to one another that I believe they're enjoying this conversation
Nothing
from
beats the
Rachel's
human
home.
connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is yours working?
Yeah.
Okay, one second. Okay, what was I saying? Okay.
All right. So to go back to a question that we had from the audience before, a little bit of technical difficulties there. What exactly is Apple Shop? Could one of you guys explain that to the Twitter audience?
I will. Hello. Okay, so Apple Shop is it has a component to it. It's designed to bring the voices of Kentuckians from Appalachia, use the media to amplify their voices on a variety of issues, and they do have a youth media component. They are an independent nonprofit that has been doing amazing grassroots work in Appalachia for decades now, I believe. And we met with one of their student teams who were learning different visual media, and they do a lot of documentaries. And this was just one small group that works with them, but they do some amazing work. They're very well known throughout the state.
So it's a statewide, or Eastern Kentucky specific?
Eastern Kentucky focused, exactly.
Okay, Eastern Kentucky focused organization that they have been partnering with, that the Pritchard Committee Student Voice Team has been partnering with to, work more with students. Is that a good way to summarize?
Exactly. And they're one group that we've reached out to, and there are so many more that are on our agenda. We're going from group to group. Again, this is still our pilot phase. We're looking for collaborators, and there are a lot of them out there. We are finding that a lot of the youth-serving agencies and youth leadership agencies, in particular, agencies that train young people to be leaders, are very excited about the prospects of supporting these young people once they're trained to apply their skills beyond the youth leadership realm into the youth and adult leadership realm. So policy making and education policy making in particular is an awesome arena for young people who've developed a set of skills, leadership skills, civic skills in particular, to practice them. And there is no reason a young person should have to wait until they're eligible to vote to be civically engaged. It's ridiculous that we expect people to, just by virtue of an 18th birthday, to suddenly become civically engaged and know how to do democracy. They should be practicing it well before middle and high school are perfect places to start, even earlier if we can. Should I get off my soapbox now?
No, that was incredible. We got another question from the Twitter audience, and I encourage everyone listening to continue to tweet questions at our Student Voice account to have them answered live here. From Hyde Allen, do you contribute your success to integration with the Pritchard Committee? I know we touched on that earlier, but if you guys could expand again on that, that'd be great.
You want to take it?
Do one of you guys, Sahil or Mahika, want to take it, or would you like me to?
I can go ahead and take it. Hyatt Allen is actually a member of our student voice team, and I find it interesting that the way he phrased that question. The answer, there really is no succinct or perfect answer to Hyatt's question. We attribute our success recently, and even defining it as success is hard to do, but we attribute our recent growth due to a lot of different factors. We've talked about how existing partnerships have really created a snowball effect and have really catapulted us to that next level. We've talked about how an increased purpose, or I guess a more succinct purpose, of going out and amplifying the voices of students, especially those who aren't necessarily heard, that has led to a lot of our recent success. And overall, media and using media to amplify our voice and amplify our purpose, whether it be through Google Hangouts like these, whether it be through opinion op-eds that are to be published, whether it be other sources of media that we try to disseminate. There are lots of different reasons and lots of different ways that, lots of different sources that we can attribute our success to. Definitely the role of integration into the Pritchett Committee, true integration with Andrew serving as a Pritchett Committee member now, definitely that has a place in when it comes to cornering our success. But the reality is that our success cannot be limited to specifically one source, and our success in the future is going to be due to multiple different factors playing out correctly. And we can't attribute our success simply due to the fact that recently we're getting more and more integrated with the Pritchett Committee. And
Sure.
I know that Ross has more to add to that as well.
All right. Ross?
So, yeah, just having the Pritchett Committee definitely here in town is a perk. And just going right down to downtown Lexington. But the big thing about the Pritchett Committee is it's not just the offices that are significant, but it's the people that make up the Pritchett Committee, which in the past have been adults. And they're fanned out across Kentucky, and they are the Pritchett Committee, and they're on it for a reason, because they're significant in education. So using them as partners and using them to the best as we can, I think is a great way, and I think has definitely contributed to our success.
Can I add one more thing? Hyatt's use of the word integration is very significant. It's a civil rights term, right? That's what we think of when we think of the word integration. This is a very, very deliberately chosen term. We are trying to integrate young people into an organization that has to do with education policy. Education is a civil right. Young people should be very much a part of the education policy process. They are not just the consumers. They need to be viewed as partners too, because they have so much to contribute to this process, and it's only fair that they own their own education.
That was beautiful and poetic. I really great wording there. So for those of you guys tuning in, Andrew Brennan, who we've mentioned a couple times on this call, is another member of the Student Voice team, and unfortunately due to the crazy weather we've got going on recently, he was unable to make it home on time for this hangout, but feel free to tweet at him, and he can talk with you guys more for those of you watching. But now to bounce back to another question that we have from Madeline Sluss. Mahika said earlier that these teachers are amazed by the information you are presenting. How receptive are they about your thoughts on homework, funding, or practices that they control? So about the receptiveness of teachers to your ideas of student voice and feedback.
So teachers specifically, there have been a couple in the audience in the events we have participated in, but overall we actually have one coming up. We have a what's it called? The Fund, and we're going to be talking about teacher effectiveness and stuff. But overall, teachers, when we, I can't talk specifically at events because we haven't really had any feedback specifically from teachers, but when we do, for example, to gather for our presentations, we ask our teachers, we get their quotes and their insights. So when we talk to them before the presentations, they're very excited. Like when we talk to them about what their opinions are about funding, some of them have a lot to say. Like some of them have shown us textbooks. So for example, for for the last one, we took moldy textbooks and textbooks which are torn to pieces. And from our teachers, my math teachers gave us a couple. Sahil had one. He took his calculus textbooks, and they gave it to us to show. So they were really excited that we get to talk about this, and it's like kind of they're just so I don't know the word, but you see a spark in them. Like, there's so many teachers, like, it's not every day that a student comes up to a teacher and is like, hey, what do you think about adequate funding? Something that they deal with on a daily basis. There are so many teachers which use money out of their own checkbook and their own account and their own money to buy things for their students because they don't have enough money. So those teachers, when they hear us questioning and concerned and wanting to hear their voices, they're very excited, and they're more than happy to explain to us what's going on. They give us statistics of apparently in some classes textbooks need to be renewed every 7 years, but in reality they haven't been renewed in like 12 years, 15 years. One of our textbooks is 19 years old, so they're very excited to share that information with us.
So I think you hit a vein there. It's about the relationship between the teacher and the student. It's about this dynamic, this culture in the classroom that really brings about actual change. So I really appreciate that thought there. I think with that being said, we're reaching our time here, and so I just want to have a couple concluding thoughts, and then if you guys have anything else you'd like to say, feel free to go ahead and add. But I just want to thank you guys for chatting with us, and we really do value the work that you guys are doing, and we see you guys as a model of what student voice on the ground level, what it looks like in the actual practical scale is. And so whether that's hosting discussion sections and round tables to gather feedback while also being sensitive of the nature of true student representation, which is not, as you guys have said, the token representation of an individual who is a high performer and a student leader, but instead can be anyone from the president of the student body to the person who's failing in the back of the math classroom. So I really do value that, and I'd encourage you guys to continue with that. And for those of you guys watching, to take away from this Hangout is how you can strive for such true representative student voice and what it looks like to integrate that with the existing resources that you have at hand. So that's what I wanted to say, and if you guys have anything else to say, feel free, but it's been a pleasure.
We appreciate your time very much, and we appreciate all you're doing, and we hope to be a lab for testing out some of the ideas of your student voice, because we are in this together, clearly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I was brought on board yesterday, and I'm so glad that I was brought on board because this has been a brilliant experience.
It really was an honor to do this. I was super nervous before. Sahil and I, we just made our Twitters, and we were just trying to figure this out. But I think this went pretty great. I'm really excited. This exceeded my expectations by a lot. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. And Ross, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so I had a couple questions come in on Twitter that I'll answer on Twitter, and later that I would say I'll try to answer on here. But definitely try to harness the power of technology that we have in front of us. And whether that be in the classroom, whether that be at home, or whether that be in your pocket, wherever you may be in the world. So see where that takes you, and I promise you it won't take you anywhere downhill. So as long as collaboration is the best thing to do.
Absolutely. And to further this dialogue, for those of you guys watching, we are collaborating with the Pritchard's Committee Student Voice team, and it's really a partnership. We love to collaborate with them, discuss what they're doing, and stay in the loop and see how we can best help them with that. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. But I have some exciting news to share for those of you guys who haven't seen it yet. Next week, tune into our Twitter chat at Monday, 8:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Central Time, for none other than Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan to be joining a Twitter chat with us. So we're very excited for that, and yay! So that's a big milestone for our personal efforts on our side of things. But that being said, you can check out our page for more information. Please do check out the Pritchard Committee's page as well and their Twitter handle. We love experiences like this, and we do feel like that these things are what's at its core student voice is. Despite some technical difficulties here and there, I think we were able to tap into these core veins of thought that the student voice movement embodies. The fact that you guys are all in the same home right now, for example, that's an example of the literal
Sharing the
connectivity.
same pizza.
Yes, exactly. So once again, it's been a pleasure. And
Thank you.
with that,
Thanks.
Thank you.